Crowd I've been talking to, so if I make mistakes, be with me. So I'm from MongoDB. I'm an advisory solutions architect, working with you developers to make you having a more enjoyable way with working with data. Today I'm going to talk about one API that can rule them all. So it's a Lord of the Ring theme here. So let's see if you get the jokes or if not. Yeah. So the world has changed. Yeah. Because I'm born in the 70s. So for me, the world has really changed. Yeah. And I guess for you too, because you're changing the JavaScript frameworks every 3 years or second years. Yeah. So what do I mean with that? So if we look at the data that's been generating, 90% of that data has been generated the last couple of years. And the data that we're seeing is actually 80% of data is multi-structured data. Yeah. And the other thing is that we need to have 24/7 uptime of our services, but we also need to be more agile. So when the requirements are changing, we need to be able to implement those requirements really fast and get speed and be competitive. Yeah. So if we look at what technologies we are using today, and this is technologies from the 70s, and if we compare it with JavaScript frameworks, which we are changing every second year, but we're still stuck with relational databases, which are not built for today. Yeah. They were built in the 70s in a different era where we'd have different usage patterns, different global reach and such. And it doesn't really scale when you have a global user base and you want to be flexible, agile, and have a velocity. Yeah. And it's also hard to iterate. So if you want to do a change, how would you do that change? Well, you would do a schema migration, then you will have sometimes downtime. Maybe you're using liquid-based, flyaway. It's really complex to work with data in a rigid structure as a relational database is. Yeah. If you compare that with JavaScript objects, it's really, you just add a field. Yeah. But in a relational database, it's really hard. You need to predefine everything. So working with data is actually hard. Yeah. It's the hardest thing you can do for a developer, I think. You agree or no? Anyone? Hands up. I cannot see everyone, but you agree that data is hard to work with? Yeah. Okay, cool. So if data is really hard to work with, why is that? Well, if we just disregard relational, requirements we have on a relational database, there are other requirements that we have today. We need to be mobile first. We need to have low latency. We need to be really do search queries. We have different use cases that we need to actually implement, and that means that we actually. I was missing clicking here, but we need to do all of these different capabilities: search, high availability, high responsiveness, and such. Mobile first, data privacy, analytics. There are a lot of capabilities that we need to build into our applications, and a lot of competencies we need to learn. So what are we doing? What organizations usually do? They have your relational database. You start out with that, and then you add something. Yeah, maybe it's not performant enough. Then you add the cache. Yeah, maybe a Redis cache. Well, then you need to have like a maybe graph database or a time series database. So you're adding all of this complexity. You're adding more and more purpose-built databases, which makes it really hard for you as a developer, I would say, because you need to learn all of these different APIs. And then on top of that, these are data silos. Yeah? You're duplicating data to different database engines. And it's really hard to access the data. Then you have your mobile application. Then you have your mobile database. You have your search database. You have your analytical database. So you're adding more and more APIs, more and more technology stack, more and more technology complexity. And this makes it really hard for you. That's why working with the data is so hard. So what about if you could actually have one API that could rule them all? Imagine that, if that could be happening. Maybe that sounds too good to be true, but I want to, if you don't believe me, you can come back to our booth and you can see, I can show you that that's possible actually. So with MongoDB, we have something called a document model, and the document model is something that makes it possible for you to represent different use cases. We can support graph use cases, search use cases, time series use cases, because the document model is so flexible. But the document model is really intuitive for you as a developer because it's a JSON object, yes? And all of you are probably UX, maybe not all of you, maybe backend programmers, I won't assume that. But that means that you can actually look at the data as you're looking at any object, programming object. You don't need to have the ORM layer, object relational mapping layer. You can ingest data, you can write data as you would do with any other Java programming object or any programming language. So on top of that, having the document model as the baseline means that we can actually support that. So, and that means we can have one unified API that gives you all of that. So I'm done now. Thanks, guys.